Hi guys, I'm Rochelle and I run Passion in Production, and what I do is I interview companies who are making small differences in the world with their companies. Now today I'm going to interview Andrew from the Escape Movement, who runs a small clothing store here in North Bay, Ontario, and we're going to go see him in his studio right now. Alright, I'm here with Andrew today. We're going to talk about the Escape Movement, which is a local clothing brand here in North Bay. I want to talk to you first about how you got started in fashion.
You know, the funny thing is, I always get asked if I went to school for fashion or what school I went to for fashion. And the thing is, I never pursued a post-secondary education and kind of just fell into fashion. When I was in high school, I had these memories of my last year in high school, kind of getting bored with my wardrobe. I was wearing the same old clothing for years, and it was at the time where like everybody's pants were super big.
Yeah.
You know, that trend was like just kind of going on its way out, and I was really kind of tired of the clothes, but I didn't have a whole lot of money to buy a new wardrobe, so figured I'd spruce it up and started making stencils of my favorite brand logos.
Oh yeah.
So I was really into snowboarding and skateboarding at the time, so I just reimagined a lot of their logos, cut them into stencils, and I bought this fabric paint from like Walmart at the time. And I started fabric painting on all of my clothing. Took these stencils and I put them in different areas and just like kind of littered my clothing with these stencils. Looking back on, you know, my first attempts at designing, that was really it. And I started to look at clothing as a canvas and an area I could like put art. So that's kind of where it all started. And then after high school, again, I didn't pursue post-secondary education. Found myself working a lot, like up to 4 jobs at one point. A buddy of mine used to make belts, and he used to do it as a hobby, and he was allowed to do it on the job while he was working at a store in town called Legit Tricks. And I remember going in there one day, and he was telling me about how he was getting a real job and selling off some of his old belt making equipment. And I just saw an opportunity to do art and potentially make some money. So I ended up scooping up a lot of his old supplies off of him and started making belts myself. First time like making something to sell. And when I started doing that, I was getting commissioned to do belts for friends and friends of friends. So I painted on, or I'd write something special in studs, and people liked it. But I'd spend hours, especially with like studding a belt. It would take me like 8 or 9 hours to make one belt, and the materials to make the belt were like $50, and then people didn't want to spend more than like $70 or $80 on a custom studded belt. So at the end of it, I was only making like $4 or $5 an hour. But it was a hobby, something I enjoyed doing, and luckily one of my friends came around and suggested making t-shirts to advertise the belt company that I was doing.
Okay, an effort to try to grow it.
He's like, yeah, people wear your t-shirt, more people find out that you make belts, it'll be this thing. I'm like, well, if I do that, I'm gonna need a company name. I might as well start like a brand. So put some thought into it, decided, this is a great idea. I'd like to make some t-shirts. Came up with a brand name and a logo, and registered the business like the following Monday, and then started making t-shirts, and we sold out of them in 2 days. You know, it's like one of those things where like, you know, everybody in your family will buy one, and then like your close friends will buy one. So I got excited. I wanted to make some more t-shirts, and the second batch I don't think we sold, right through right away. Those were a little bit harder to sell, but I was really motivated and inspired. And it was right around that time where I was like, go back to school or do this, and I was like, might as well give this a shot.
How old were you?
Would have been 18 going on 19.
Wow, what a cool time.
Yeah, so, at that age I was like, hey, I feel like I still don't know what I want to do. This is fun. I had saved up money for the year to go to school. I had saved up quite a bit of money, and I decided to invest all that in more clothing. Put everything I had into like releasing this collection, and I was friends with people at our local ski hill, and I rented out a space in there to showcase the brand and trying to build some hype and some excitement around the brand, and just, went through the hassles. We weren't printing our own stuff at the time. I was dealing with this company in Toronto. They ended up getting a lot of the sizing wrong on our prints, the colors and the inks wrong. The whole order was just like a mess. Go down there, spend every penny I had on t-shirts, end up getting pulled over by the cops making a left-hand turn at like 10 to 6. And it was like, had I been there like 7 minutes later, I would have been able to do the left-hand turn, no problem. End up getting like a $300 ticket. I just remember when we went to launch the product the next day, it was the first time in my life I had like $7 in my account and $300 fine that I had to pay. Long story short, I was like in debt that day, that morning, for like the first time ever. But by the end of the day, we had sold $2,200 worth of product. And I was just like, wow, like I made $2,200 today. This is the most amazing thing ever. But I'd spent like 10 grand on product. leading up to that. And I don't think I ever ended up selling $10,000, but I was so naive at the time that I didn't look at the fact that I lost like $8,000.
Didn't matter.
It didn't matter. I was like, I made $2,000 today. So I was super hyped. The launch party was a lot of fun. A lot of people came out. It was a good time. And I just started thinking about like, okay, gotta do this better. Gotta, improve. After experiencing some issues with the printer, like messing things up, I was like, I gotta do this myself. Can't rely on people. Like, they're not reliable. They wait till the last minute. And fortunately enough, one of my friends, or an individual that I was becoming friends with, was screen printing in his basement, his mom's basement at the time. And he's like, oh, well, I'll teach you how to screen print. Like, come around. And looking back on it, it was like he didn't know what he was doing. He was just trying to figure it out. And we sometimes got it right, but most of the times got it wrong. I learned, but barely. Bought my own equipment. Like, it was like awful, really basic one color stuff. I think one of the most ingenious things I did back then was I was like, okay, I got to do this better. And I called up a shop in Toronto and said, hey, like, I'm struggling. Do you guys mind if I come and volunteer at your shop for a few days and learn how to do this better? And they're like, yeah, no problem. Went in and learned how to do that cleaning process properly. They showed me a few things, like a few steps that I wasn't taking to totally save me time.
Yeah.
Went and bought like the proper materials to clean them up afterwards, and then I found myself following day, like actually like, okay, everything's cleaned. Now you can like prepping them all. And then by the end of that day, they're like, okay, well, come onto the floor and take some notes. And for the most part, didn't ask many questions. I just watched the individuals operating the equipment on the floor, and it was enough. Like, I just sat there with a notepad, and all these things like ended up saving me tons of time. And it was like a 3-day crash course in screen printing.
Yeah, but sometimes it's what you got to do. Like the volunteer, sometimes it puts you right where you need to be.
It was the best because when I came back, I knew exactly what I needed to do. Every step of the process, I had like a little journal. And if I was like, oh, how do we do that again? I would go back to my notes, remind me how to do it. And then, once you've done something once yourself, you can do it 1,000 times.
Exactly.
So, yeah. So that got everything going. And then I started printing t-shirts for bands and some small businesses in town. Had a few opportunities back then that were pretty, unique. It started to take off. And that next year, having the equipment allowed me to do some pretty unique prints. Mm-hmm. What we were doing with the brand at the time was everything was a one-of-a-kind item. By the third year, we started to develop a name for ourselves. We were doing a lot of promotions up at the college and university. We were throwing parties at the wall. People got to know what we were doing with the brand. And come our third launch, we did really well. Like, we almost sold out of the entire collection in a couple of days.
This was all like, sounds like you dominated North Bay, like you dominated this town.
There was like a collective of individuals that really supported us back then. I remember that year it was just something special about the launch and then, the amount of energy and the number of people in the room. Just incredible. It was special. We ended up getting an opportunity. Some friends had purchased a building downtown on Main Street and they had an empty unit beside them. It was like Christmas season. They're like, hey, we can give you this space for the month. Looking back on it, just an incredible deal on the rent. Yeah, and I didn't realize it at the time, but it was also one of those things where I wouldn't have looked at that, as an opportunity to open up a store. I would never pursued it, but they kind of just handed it to me and the deal was too good to pass up. And I just remember like moving into the space, we had like 1 day to set it up, and the floor was like in horrible condition. And my dad, being like the helpful guy that he is, he was like, let me get some stuff. We're gonna fix this up. And he takes off and goes to Canadian Tire and gets like green AstroTurf.
Ooh.
Yeah, like fake grass. And then we like put that down at the front of the store.
What an interesting look. Like, I imagine people walking into your store and being like, what?
Yeah. And like, it was so, like, at the time I was just like, okay, like, whatever, like, we just need a fix for this, and I guess this works. The store looked awful, but it also showcased our product.
Yeah, but then it's memorable.
Yeah.
You walk in and you're like, whoa, I haven't seen anything else like this. I imagine that must have actually worked in your benefit. Your whole start was really meant to be.
Yeah, just like little things like that. Like, looking back on it now, I'm like, wow, look at these like incredible opportunities that came my way at that time, and it just kind of all came together.
So what happened from then and now to the escape movement?
Things come to an end with the store. We pack up at the end of December, And my relationship at that time, during that time, it also came to an end. Like I'm like 22 now, been doing this brand for a couple of years, starting to see some success with it, but I never really did what I wanted to do. And that was go to Whistler. So I was like, you know what? It's kind of now or never. And I was like, hey, I got my one-way ticket, gonna figure things out. And I get out there and they're having a really terrible year. You know, during that time, I used to snowboard instruct in the wintertime, just occasionally to get like the free pass and allow me to get on the mountain. So I thought I was gonna get a job like that out there. No luck. But there was just no work. And the week that I moved out there, Whistler laid off something like 500 or 700 people off of like the resort.
Yeah, I've been there.
I had heard of this path. This, like,
this sounds like a good story.
Yeah, there's this like trail that you can hike up. It's an old biking trail, and you can get, midway up the mountain. And if you can get midway up the mountain, they don't check passes at the like mid-station lifts. So I'd get to the mid-mountain lift station and ride for free all day. It was an adventure finding the trail, and it was great. So I'm like, okay, well at least I have this. I'm not working, but I'm getting out riding. But you can only do that so many days in a row, and then you're exhausted. So I ride for 2 days, and then on my third day, I'd always take a day off. And I just started spending all my time in the library. And then luckily I discovered Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Workweek when I was out there. In Tim Ferriss's book, he talks about like lifestyle design, and that really appealed to me. So it wasn't just like, hey, business. It was like, hey, life's too short. Your most valuable currency is time, not money. So where are you going to invest your time, and how are you going to build wealth based on time? I was really fascinated by that concept, realized that I could commit my time into doing what I wanted to do, and hopefully the end result would be like a lifestyle that worked well for me. And like rediscovering my passions while I was in Whistler and being forced not to work, like being forced into a vacation, really taught me that. I started to reconnect with those important things, realizing snowboarding was amazing, and I need to like have my passions in my life, and like I'd put that all aside to like try and make some money. And I was like, what am I even doing? And then I had this moment of contemplation where I was like, a few years out of school, and some of my friends had already graduated from their college or university program. I looked at a lot of them, and they weren't doing the things that they were passionate about anymore. And I was like, wow, this is a real shame, because like those activities used to bring these guys so much joy, and that's what they were known for in high school. And now that's who they were. So we started the escape movement just hopefully serve as a reminder for everybody to spend more time escaping from your 9-to-5 life and doing the things that are very important to you and they love doing.
So then you want your customers in a sense to embody that, like, be free, don't let yourself be trapped in that 9-to-5 then, eh? Yeah, exactly. I mean, like, we're all kind of stuck in the same system and we have to work. It's a fact of life, but like trying to like now find yourself in a situation where you're working for work's sake, where you're working for a cause, for a purpose. You've got goals that are getting you, to a place that you prefer to be at in your life. So you didn't do any business or anything? Like you never went to school for that? No. So it's all self-taught, and like it's incredible when you pick up books. You start to realize like how much you can learn through books, and then like I'm gonna listen to a lot of audiobooks now because I don't have a lot of time to sit down and handle a book, and I find I can get through audio a lot quicker than I can visual content. How did you like discover like the feather was the thing that embodied freedom? Like I have vivid memories of like my dad always had bird feeders. Like it was just something like he likes to garden and feed the birds. Like every day I'd wake up and admire the birds at the bird feeder. And I remember when I got into snowboarding and skateboarding and wakeboarding and all these sports, like it was all about freedom. And the sensation of freedom was embodied by like catching air. Like nothing is more freeing than the feeling of like leaving the ground and having this like moment of silence in the air to just do what you want to do. That sensation of like landing a new trick, anybody will tell you is like the best feeling ever. Being into traveling and stuff as well, I like the idea that birds migrate and they don't often stay in the same place for their entire lives, but they'll often leave their feather behind. And then you fly the feather on the ground and you're like, this is cool. Our logo is a feather falling, right? So it's not just like... You can kind of see it draping down. Yeah. So
the whole idea, I wanted to try and capture like what looked like a feather just kind of like gracefully falling to the ground. When I came up with the idea for the logo being a feather, it just felt right. It also was one of those things that I wanted to hand out our logo, whatever it was going to be, as a sticker. And then the idea of like being able to hand out these feather stickers and allowing somebody to place that feather wherever they want as their own personal reminder. It was like this idea of like the brand kind of leaving its feathers behind.
It's actually funny because you can see the feather in North Bay in a lot of places. You see it on a fire hydrant, you'll see it on a sign, you'll see it like in really unexpected places, on a mural or something. It's like, you kind of like don't expect it and you see it and you're like, oh, that's the escape movement.
We hope that when people put them places and they're seen or somebody's wearing it, I'm hoping it'll be the trigger, that reminder to like, okay, go and spend some time doing what you love to do today. Like pick up your guitar, hop on your skateboard, do something for yourself today. Do something that like brings you joy and happiness. We make everything locally. We have a small sewing team that makes all of our product here in town.
That's really like a noble intention to really try and keep it as local as possible. It's something I think the world needs more of.
Yeah. And I mean, growing up here in North Bay, I've seen the lack of jobs and opportunity for young people in town. If we could do anything to try and keep some jobs here, keep some employment happening in our own community, it's a bit of an obligation to try our best to do that.
North Bay has really become connected in a sense to your brand, the escape movement. Nice to see that. I'm just going to ask you about your design process.
Sure.
How do you design your products?
This is an interesting thing because we have a store that is open 7 days a week, 12 hours a day. And designing the product is what I love to do most, but I think it's the thing that I have the least amount of time for right now. In like a moment of inspiration, I could be like driving.
Okay.
And I'll be like, oh yeah, that color would look great on that kind of garment. That part of my mind is always kind of running. I'm always like seeking inspiration from places, and I'm always putting ideas together. It just kind of doesn't stop. Being able to incorporate different design elements into our product, where you're going to see like different cuts, you're going to see different fabrics, you're going to see different prints involved in the garment.
So are you a designer that carries like a pad around with you, like for whenever this happens?
I used to carry like Post-it notes all the time.
Really?
And then all my designs used to be on little yellow Post-it notes. And even like my sketches, a lot of times they weren't like complete sketches. It was like a fast doodle that I would look at and be like, oh yeah, that design had a flower and a bird. And this is how they looked, and they should go together like this. But as soon as I'd see like the thumbnail sketch, the visual would like ignite in my mind again. I think I work off like visual stuff.
Okay.
So for me, it'd just like be about creating like a quick doodle that would allow me to remember exactly that thought that I had at that time.
Okay. So I was noticing like here in your studio you have like these dry erase boards, these like little designs on them.
Yeah. So I take like the inspiration, and then when I get a chance, I'll usually like throw it onto like a dry erase board and like do it a little bit bigger. When I'm putting something together, it allows me to picture the fabrics that we're going to use, and I'll just make notes, like design notes. Okay. And then so like I find like looking at it on a grander scale, like seeing everything, I can kind of be like, okay, this palette works best, and like these colors work best. And then if I have to make cuts, it's easier to kind of go in and make cuts. But I often find that I have like way too many design ideas. Where I get to have fun is when I'm putting together something that's got like a unique cut.
Oh, okay.
Or like unique features. And sometimes those pieces can go unnoticed. So I experiment with those, but I always appreciate it when our customers come in and they notice those details. And the best is when people are out in the real world taking photos wearing them, and they're posting them up on their Instagram, and like seeing them wear it and it looked really good. It's like, okay, cool. Yeah, that concept actually is awesome in real life. So
that's cool because then you can actually see people living the escape movement, living the philosophy in a sense.
Yeah, and that's the amazing thing about the world we live in now, where everything's so connected. We had customers in our store today that were thrilled to take a photo in the shop. We've got a sign that says "We are North Bay" right now.
Yeah.
And they just gathered around and posted that on their Instagram, and the young girl who was working for me told me about it, and then sure enough I got the tag on Instagram and there it is. I get to experience that through Instagram, which is really cool.
Well, before we wrap this up, I wanted to ask you, what's the future of the escape movement?
Well, you have restricted supply. That's definitely an avenue that I'm looking forward to releasing. Each piece is going to be made for the individual buying it. And I think that's really cool. And I'm hoping that that'll also help us reach broader market. So not just something that will have appeal here locally, but something that will also have appeal to our customers nationally as well. It's a lot of work, but at the same time, it just keeps things fresh. You just come to something new, every time you go on one of our pages. So, and expanding our manufacturing division.
Okay.
And our capabilities. We're actually in the process of investing in some new equipment that's going to allow us to do things that I'm quite excited about. Maybe I should expand on it.
Okay.
I don't know what we're doing, but it's exciting. And it involves really heavy equipment.
I've gotten a sneak peek and it's really exciting, but I can't tell you anything else.
It's big, but it's going to allow us to do things that currently nobody else is capable of doing in Ontario. And I'm just trying to find a space right now to put it all together, because we have to move out of our current space. You know what? I gotta give a shout out to the Richardsons, the two brothers that own the Voyager, because that's where we were originally going to set everything up. And those guys have been super awesome. Anybody that's looking to do something, definitely talk to those guys. But thank you guys.
Well, I don't want to take any more of your time. It's been really good to get to know you. And I hope you guys have really enjoyed getting to know Andrew and the escape movement. And shout out to your tags. You can find them on...
Yeah, you can check us out at theescapemovement.com, on Instagram at theescapemovement, Facebook /escape movement. The next couple of months, stay tuned for the restricted supply and check out what's happening with our big plans.
All right, see you guys. Thanks for your time.
And do.